going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and you don't see my pretty, sexy face, so you know I'm not alone. But it's not Kristen. It's not Guapo. We're not in the Wayback Machine, and it's not even OKFabe. But if you watch OKFabe, or you watch Joe Cronin, or you watch him on his own channel, you may know the guy that's on with me tonight, Mr. Jake DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm truly excited to finally be able to meet up and join you. I know our schedules have, well, at least mine anyways, has not been, the easiest to deal with, but I appreciate you pulling some time out and having me join you today for a bit of a conversation. Something we're both passionate about, besides wrestling, obviously, is people throwing hissy fits.
So we're either talking about Sasha Banks or JD from New York, is what you're saying.
Yeah, leave it up to everybody's imagination. Not for long, though.
But hey, there was some good that came out of it, though. I mean, we gave you a new nickname, Marco DeMarco.
That's right.
It's all good. Anyways, when we get towards the end, I'll give you a slate to tell everybody where they can find you, because you're probably living under if you guys know me but don't know Jake, you're probably on a very weird, rocky end of the YWC, because I'm pretty sure more people know you and Joe and Connor than know me. But
I don't know. Don't doubt yourself.
I'm going to give everybody in the audience a chance to groan for a second. We're here tonight to talk about Sasha Banks. And for those of you that have been listening for a long time, you guys know that myself and Guapo did a video not too long after WrestleMania when Sasha took her ball and went home. I gave my feelings at the time. Guapo gave his feelings at the time. We made a lot of really bad, really crude, and really well-deserved jokes at the time. And you kind of knew that, I don't know, there was going to be another side to it. Like, she was going to come back eventually, and we'd have to come back and attack it from the other side. And unfortunately, I was in Toronto. I was at Scotiabank Arena, and Jake, we've all done it in one way or another when we make our deals with the wrestling gods. A tournament comes up, the guy you wanted to win is eliminated, and then you do that sort of like, well, my guy didn't win, but I mean, at least if so and so doesn't go on, I'll be happy with it. We've all looked to the heavens and made those kind of. We all knew Sasha Banks.
Those little barters. Yeah.
I went to Toronto 4 straight nights of wrestling, 5 if you include Destiny, and I had a hell of a time. I'm not even gonna lie. Even the tarped off SmackDown show was a lot of fun because nobody bought tickets, so I got upgraded. It was good.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
But I sort of did the whole, like, she's going to come back eventually. I was lucky enough that it didn't happen. It didn't become part of the SummerSlam show itself. She didn't, like, maneuver her way into the title picture on a big 4 pay-per-view out of nowhere. But I sort of did this little thing of, like, okay, she's going to come back. At least if I don't have to put up with it live. Like, it's not too much
to deal with it face to face.
And then she did, and then I think I live streamed from my phone on Twitter, just me being probably, well, a crowd idiot, but just saying, like, why can't I have nice things?
Yeah, being a bit irate, but justifiably so, because I mean, she has crapped all over, the essentially the wrestling community. That's what it feels like. And the thing is, I know Jericho even admitted today that one of Vince's main tactics, which for anybody, it's obvious, but, the last person to get released is Ty Dillinger, Sean Spears.
Yep.
And we know that, he was the last one to get his release. Luke Harper, The Revival, so on and so forth. Forget it. You don't have a chance to get your release anymore. It's not going to happen. You ask for it, they're not going to let you go. Jericho openly admitted that that's how they're going to go ahead and maintain, keeping people away from AEW. Direct quote is he got his release. Cody and him are friends, so Jericho obviously states that Vince knew what he was capable of, and had he known more about AEW at that point, he wouldn't have let him go. But he did say that no one else will ever get their release from WWE again. Nobody.
But you know what I say though, like, and I've said it in the chat while I've been watching you and Joe talk about similar stuff, is that does suck, and if they're just being, like, basically shuffled off into the corner to never be used, like a Luke Harper type of idea, it does suck, but my sympathy for them is really, really measured, and I guess I'm sort of becoming jaded a little bit, because at the end of the day, WWE chooses to use an extension clause in your contract. If you didn't read your contract when you signed it to know that extension clause is there, some of that's got to fall on you.
But even if your contract isn't extended, let's say you haven't been injured, you haven't had any issues, and they just refuse to let you go early, and now they're taking you off TV. You're still being compensated for your time. No, you're not being utilized like you want to be, but you're still being paid. You signed the contract. This is where you wanted to be at one point, and you kind of reap what you sow in a sense. It sucks that creative didn't find a way to use you properly, or maybe you don't deserve to be used. Maybe you haven't been great, and you don't have a gimmick or an idea that resonates with the WWE universe. Granted, there's a bunch of angles to it. We see things where people are white hot and they just hit that vein a little too late. They don't tap into the source. Other times, things just don't really click that they try to force onto us. So it goes both ways. But my issue is the fact of, when people do, and it's a tried and true statement, take their ball and go home. As much as that sounds silly, it's the truth. When people go ahead and start being, I don't want to say
childish.
Well, none of us, but being gifted championship matches and headline stories when they go ahead and act so childish and selfish, really, that's upsetting. And that's part of the reason why I never cared for Brock Lesnar. I know Joe and Connor and a few others don't quite grasp it, but I'm a very loyal person. And that's something that irks me endlessly. When you put yourself above others, I know you want to see yourself succeed in the business. You need to be a little selfish. You need to look out for number one, but not constantly. And granted, I know, that was my main issue with Brock all the time, where, if it wasn't for him, it was for no one else. There was no camaraderie. There was no locker room leader support. It was only, his way or the highway. And that's truly how I feel about Sasha at this point. And she, granted, they could have ran away from it Monday, and that's what I think the problem was. She didn't have much of a decent promo on Monday at all. It really lacked any type of feeling. It was too,
the amount of
too
people
scripted for her to enjoy it.
I've even seen people that were like were hyped for her return be like, well, the heat is gone in 2 weeks. But I do want.
Yeah, they've admittedly said they have no care now because of how she conveyed her message, and apparently just before I let you go here, it said that Paul Heyman wrote this promo and has been very involved in Sasha's, basically repackaging, instead of running away from the story of her walking out at WrestleMania. And they're saying embrace it and get right into it and focus on it and dive head first into it all. And I feel like, okay, you want to acknowledge it, but they kind of made a mockery of her and the women's division and the women's tag team titles all at once, rather than make her look like a bad guy.
Right. So what I had initially wanted to do, and I sort of went off on a tangent, and you followed me on the tangent. I wanted to touch on one little quick, before we zero in specifically on Sasha, which is obviously the point of this video. There is a theory that I have in general, and I said you could do it kayfabe-wise. I said you could make a huge, big story of it. I really do think that WWE, if they want to flesh out the layers of their division, they need to find a way to get all, and it sounds crazy, nobody agrees with me, that's fine, yell at me on Twitter. They need to find a way to get all four horsewomen off TV for a bit. Like, they need to have like it sounds cliche, but they need to have like sort of a locker room revolt and get all four women out. Like, just whoever's left in the, like, how big are the rosters? There's like 20 women across a couple different brands. Just like 20 on 4. And just not because any of them, like, I mean, we're going to talk about Sasha, but not because any of the four horsewomen have done anything bad specifically, but because they can't get out of the groove of, I mean, Ronda Rousey was a little bit of an exception because she became a spotlight as well, but they can't get out of either the four horsewomen facing each other or the four horsewomen facing somebody else. And there's a lot underneath, and I mean, it ties into...
I understand what you're getting at. It's like a been there, done that scenario. We've seen them in some iteration, whether it was Charlotte and Sasha, or Charlotte and Bayley, or Bayley and Sasha. Like, we've gotten those four in one way or another endlessly since they came up to the main roster. And even on NXT beforehand, we saw pretty much the best version of a lot of those feuds. And then we get the carbon copy, which has been extremely lackluster. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the problem
they did do the good thing of like spreading them out across the brands. I mean, it got murky.
With the wild card,
it got really weird.
Anyways, but no, I understand exactly what you're saying. And the main issue though is that Vince, creative, WWE, corporate, backstage as a whole, they only can put their eggs in a few baskets at once. They can only focus on a few stars. So if they have to focus on other women, like you said, the other 20 or so in the roster, and they don't focus on those main 4, I don't think they could function. I don't think the divisions would even exist. They'd probably just keep everyone off of TV. And that's the sad part, because they rely on those 4 women so heavily that when one's injured or not around, or someone decides to have a hissy fit and run away crying because they're not getting their way, it really does. It hinders all the plans. And then you have, because look, Sasha wasn't around, so they had to they kind of changed plans, and the Iconics never defended the belts ever.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna get into the value. We're gonna get into the value of those belts in a minute. But what I was saying, right, is because SummerSlam sort of set a bit of a template, right? Because Charlotte was doing her thing with Trish. They didn't throw her right back in the title picture, which they usually get accused of. You had Bayley with 1 title, which gave Ember Moon an opportunity. I was happy for Ember Moon. Like, the match wasn't great. Like, there was a little something missing, but at least it was that, okay, Ember Moon is something new. Ember Moon is somebody we like. We love to see them get this thing. The Natalya thing wasn't quite the same thing, but it was sort of like if you have to have the 4 horsewomen, you at least took that element and spread it out a little bit. And you start thinking, okay, if it's not going to be Ember Moon and it's not going to be Natalya, like, I know who I want to see thrive. I want to see Nikki Cross get a boost. I want to see Ruby Riott when she comes back from injury. I want to see a rocket on her ass. I want to see Sonya Deville away from Mandy Rose, even though I like them as a team, because Sonya Deville on her own is fucking fantastic. The exception I make is Bayley, because they're changing Bayley slowly, so I'm sort of curious. And then, I'm not going to lie, when I was sitting in Scotiabank Arena and the Sasha Banks music hit, I was just like, well, none of those things are going to happen now.
Exactly. It goes back to the norm. And look, when you first started the call tonight, you were giddy just like I was, of a simple promo, the premise of an idea.
Oh, NXT tonight.
Change. Yeah, and I know the YWC as a whole and critics, everybody is constantly berating the main roster and praising NXT. But It's hard. I know it's like the thing to do, but honestly, it's not me just slobbing Triple H's knob. They're doing something right here. They really are. They're look at the intensity from the crowd and the reaction on Twitter, and I was going nuts because I tried to avoid as many spoilers as possible.
Yeah.
I knew the tag titles were obviously changing, but I avoided everything else that wasn't told to me directly.
I knew, and it was still great.
And
for those of you that don't know,
to see, Ripley go ahead and it's great.
Cards on the table. Jake and I are recording this on a Wednesday. This is probably going to premiere sometime Friday evening. We're talking about this week's episode of NXT. If you've seen my review, you've already seen me talk about it. It takes 2 very special types of people to have a 10-second stare down that revs up a crowd like that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, as much
and Ripley, they sold me on that match just by looking at each other.
Yep.
Then when she opened her mouth in the mic, it was short, sweet, straight to the point. Yep. But that's the kind of things we should have on the main roster. That's a WrestleMania feud right there, honestly. Right. That's more than just a takeover. Sure. That's got Mania written all over it.
Yeah.
And sadly, we'll get it on NXT. It'll be amazing. And then when they get to the main roster, she'll be involved in a lesbian angle. It'll be who likes donuts the best. It's a wasted opportunity. And that's why when you bring it all back to Sasha, I was so disgruntled and upset because you have so many people that just are itching, clawing, begging. Liv Tyler, or what's her name? Liv
Morgan?
Yeah, I always say fucking Aerosmith's daughter. I mess that up all the time. Liv Morgan goes ahead and she constantly, with her blue tongue, is begging on Twitter to be seen, to be given. She got one chance against Charlotte briefly. They kind of gave you an idea that they're going to change her angle and give her a bit of a character makeover, and then we get nothing, absolutely nothing. There's so many people there that deserve a chance to at least try and resonate with the audience and get some type of a backing, a little bit of support, and they don't.
And they don't get it. And I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are going to laugh at this because I don't think she's anybody's favorite person. But look at somebody like Dana Brooke. Like, Dana Brooke is not the greatest wrestler in the world, but I think she's more public about, like, the amount of work she does and the amount of time she spends at the PC. And supposedly, I think this is just a rumor, but, like, at the PC and at the house shows and whatever, she's there with the ring crew, like, trying to learn, like, that end of things just to know a little bit more. to pick up a little bit more knowledge, to learn things from a different perspective. And like, you don't have to do that shit.
No,
That's
no,
somebody that like sees where they are and wants to be somewhere else. That's
exactly.
that's
That
not somebody
shows
that comes back
dedication.
from a 4 week, 4 month
4 month
temper
vacation.
tantrum and gets placed. But
And that's the thing too. We saw no punishment be at least publicly put upon Sasha, which I think would have went a long way with the critics, especially myself. Instead, she comes back and is reached out with open arms, and her return was good. I know it was good. I'm being a sourpuss about it. Because I have such a negative, impacted feeling towards her because I just despise that selfish behavior. She took off. She said, "Screw the rest of the roster. I'm not getting what I deserve." Even though you were the tag team champions on WrestleMania. What about the women that didn't even get a shot to be at Mania? And here you are saying you didn't give two shits about the belts.
You're in a title situation. It's the first time those titles have been defended at WrestleMania. How many of your compatriots, some of them, I'm sorry, are better than you, were jammed in a battle royal on the pre-show?
Look at the years where the women didn't even have a match at Mania, or their match was pushed to the next night, or all they did have was a lingerie battle royal, or a moment where Santino cross dresses and becomes a transgender champ.
Oh my god.
What
I was listening. You know what I was listening to today, right? I listened to. Obviously, I listened to like you guys and Jake and Connor and all of our people in our community, but I also listened to a lot of What Culture. And they do the 5-star review, just give them something really crappy from the past to review. And they were reviewing WrestleMania 19, the Miller Lite Catfight Girls.
Yeah.
Like that shit. Okay, I look back on that and I laugh, and Coach is an idiot and he lost his pants and haha, wasn't it funny? But that shit doesn't happen anymore. Like, for the better. But like, would I love to see some comedy like that come back along with the amazing female wrestling? I wouldn't mind. But like it's not like it was. And the whole narrative, and I have to say supposedly, because none of us are talking to Sasha Banks face to face, but if it's not her, then it's her fan base that says, we don't blame her for walking out because she's been so mistreated. And Jake, I'm just going to do this really quickly. I know I've sent this particular text block to you guys before. You guys talked about it on your show, but it bears repeating because I've found a couple of
It absolutely does.
What I sent to you was from 2014 to 2019, Sasha Banks has been featured in over 33 pay-per-views for whatever brand she was on at the time. If it was NXT,
33.
If she was in NXT, it was a takeover. If it was on Raw, it was a Raw pay-per-view or a Big Four or whatever. And I was very specific. I went probably almost too specific. By featured, I mean she was either in the title match, she was in the main female storyline of the time, she was in the only women's match of the night, or the longest women's match of the night. 33.
That was 33 times out of roughly 45 total possible.
Exactly. Now, even
the male side, Roman didn't even have that at one point.
Yeah, but poor women. Like that's a whole other conversation. But in that time, in the time of those, and I'm not talking about TV because I would be here all day. But in that time, she was a one-time NXT champion. The caveat being that at that point in NXT's history, they didn't do multi-time champions, so one time was all anybody got. 4-time Raw champ, 1-time tag champ. All of her title reigns total approximately 260 days as a champion of some kind on some brand, as the face of a division somewhere. She was the first women's champion of color, which isn't a huge deal, but it's worth noting. She was the first women's main event of a pay-per-view for both NXT TakeOver and main roster pay-per-view. She was in the first women's Iron Woman match, both in NXT and on the main roster. She was in the first women's Hell in the Cell. She was in, this counts for pretty much everybody, but she was in the first women's Royal Rumble. Okay, big deal. So was everybody else. She lasted 54 minutes and 46 seconds. No, she didn't win. That went to Asuka. Well deserved. She was the Iron Woman of the very first Women's Royal Rumble. She helped introduce the modern WWE Women's Championship in the Triple Threat at WrestleMania. She helped introduce the women's tag titles. Kayfabe, she was given the credit for their creation along with Bayley, which I thought was very strange. She was the first ever women's tag champ of the modern era, because we know those titles existed back in the day. If you watch her tag team matches, she's rarely the one that takes the loss. It was usually Bayley. If she's in a multi-woman match, she's usually one of the other people in the match while the loser is getting pinned, unless it's a elimination match. That's separate. She got to stand toe to toe with Ronda Rousey at a time where everybody else was getting squashed. She, along with Charlotte and Paige and Becky, were sort of the ones that were singled out and credited as the beginning of the women's revolution by Stephanie McMahon. And yes, we all laugh at Stephanie McMahon.
The praise is endless, but you're right. You know,
and
it just keeps building and building.
And this is the thing that kills me. The last one, and I just remembered this one today, so I wanted to make sure I stuck this in. She and Alexa Bliss, and nobody likes Alexa Bliss because you're not supposed to, because she's white and blonde. I get it. But they had the first women's match ever in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And they were handpicked for like, she had to be replaced by Natalia because she went and fucked off. They were handpicked to do that same thing, to break that same barrier in Saudi Arabia had that deal gone through.
Exactly. So
Please tell me what more they can give this woman.
I know she didn't hold the title long enough, and it was short reigns and stuff, but they gave her everything she wanted time and time again, and it still was not enough for her because she was jealous. I go back to WrestleMania.
I even call bullshit on that because I go back to my Dana Brooke example. You know, spending all the time at the PC, learning how to set up the ring just to do something. Tell me she wouldn't have taken one of those 1 month title reigns from Sasha. Fuck you. You don't want it. I'll take it.
Everybody would have. Ember Moon would have jumped on that, you know, and that's the thing.
Everybody that I just mentioned, Ruby Riott, Sonya Deville, Ember Moon, this new version of Bayley, Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss were two of the only mistakes that I can think of in the history of the women's division in NXT, because they were both used to put over other acts rather than ever getting their own shine. And they've both, I mean, Alexa Bliss took that, made this bitchy character, and she's one of the best characters on the main roster now. And Nikki Cross now is starting to come into her own, but like that's like up until now where people are going back to NXT to sort of pick up what they missed. It's insane.
Exactly, and Sasha really, you know, the main worry of mine is, they could fix this angle, they can recover here. She isn't completely ruined, but you know, it's going to take a lot of work to gain favor with the fans that don't care for her because of this reason. And also, it worries me more so about the future of anybody else that feels like they're not getting what they want gets a chance to walk away and disappear because they don't feel like, Drew McIntyre's, I lost the King of the Ring tournament, so now I'm going to go walk away for 4 months.
And here's, okay, going back to the Mania where she lost the title, here's where her own logic goes in circles. And I have to say, apparently, again, it's that whole, like, we don't talk to her face to face, so I have to put in apparently, or else some keyboard warrior is going to be in my comment section. She's upset that she had to lose the tag team titles at WrestleMania. It happens. She's upset because she thought the reign was going to be longer. It happens. Also, she's a singles competitor. She would be considered a main eventer in her division, correct?
Absolutely.
So tell me why, if she's worried about the whole roster, she's just, she's so philanthropic and she just wants to see everybody succeed, why would she, a main eventer in her division, want to soak up tag team titles, which, I'm sorry, as much as I like the idea, tag team titles by definition are mid-card titles. And also
traditionally.
And also she's a single star. Why would you take that away when there are actual teams that are good? The Iconics, no, they're not the greatest in-ring tacticians.
But that was a chance for them to, build up.
But their act was over. And
then they didn't utilize them at all. And that's the thing now. Now, she got punished 0, and she's going to go ahead and she'll have, feud after feud and chance after chance for the title. And that's what's most upsetting about this to me, really. And
she's upset that she wasn't in the main event.
Yep. And she made the comment about her pay, was not the same for Mania, all these type of comments. And that's not relatable to the fans. The fans aren't going to care that, they're going to look at you and mock you. They're not going to go ahead and feel sorry for you.
But not even the pay scale, though. Not even the pay scale. I'm just saying the very simple fact that she's pissed off that she wasn't in the main event. Okay. The tag team titles, once again, I'm going to go back to it, not to put them down. Tag titles are mid-card titles. You're sad that you lost your mid-card titles, and you're upset that you weren't in the main event. You need to pick a lane. If you want to be in the main event, then you can't be sad that you lost tag titles. Um,
You hit that on the head. I do apologize. I got to run for out of nowhere.
And we're back. Unbeknownst to us, this was going to be recorded in 2 parts because we had a very narrow time frame to fill last week. So this is being taped for any of you that are listening to this now. It'll be one audio, but this was taped over the course of 2 weeks, and it kind of worked out.
Don't tell them now. We're just letting them know we can see into the future.
Well, no, because last week we talked about the Shayna Baszler thing as if it just happened, and this week, at the very end, I'm going to talk about something that happened just this week as if it just happened, because...
No, we're supposed to be mind readers and able to predict what's happening, later on in life. Come on.
See, what's going on here, Jake, is...
You're peeling back the curtain.
You'll get to know my audience. They know I am absolutely not a mind reader. Also, they know that, given no time constraints with other great co-hosts of mine like Kristen, Guapo, etc., shout out to them, they know I do tend to drag things out. So you having a short time window is probably going to help out my listeners in the long run. And we also sort of had a natural divide point anyway, because we can sort of look at the Sasha Banks thing in 2 halves, and last week we got to talk about basically what led up to her leaving, the sort of misinformed opinion that she's been misused or held back or anything like that, and now we can look at it as a now, whereas last week we were talking more about then, and this... I'm not going to lie to you and to the audience. This is not as linear as what we were talking about before. I just have some very, very random points. There's one I just want to go over because it was what we were discussing right when you unfortunately had to leave us.
Yeah, and plus, spacing the week apart, too, kind of gave us a chance to see more of what we were going to get from the Sasha character this time around, where they were going with things, and we also have the benefit of kind of, commenting further. So, a little bit of extra knowledge really helps.
And I mean, for me, it's not doing anything good. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat as well. But I'll let you continue.
The very last point, and it was what we were talking about just before the cut, is just the duality of the WrestleMania situation, where you get somebody that is upset that they had to drop mid-card tag team titles, simultaneously being upset that they weren't in the main event.
Yeah, when there's so many people clamoring just to be on the show in the first place that.
Yeah.
Don't get included at all or don't, I forget now, but I remember before Mania literally scratching my head at how many people didn't have a match, and yet there were still so many matches on the card.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's troublesome, but, how many people are relegated and demoted essentially to a pre-show match? How many people are not showcased at all? How many people only had if they were in a battle royal that amounted to nothing, So... At least now you've got a full entrance. You didn't come out to the generic, brand theme song with, 20 people surrounding you, as some of the men had to for the, the big rumble that happened for the Battle Royal.
Now, I will say...
I wouldn't be complaining to have that, you came out as champions, you lost, but at least you were there and defending the titles that you now say mean nothing to you, so...
Well, that's a storyline since she's come back. But
she said that then that she, was not about the titles, and they meant nothing to her, and she wanted to be the main event. She was sour that she wasn't where Becky was.
Which is so funny because I don't know whether it was ever an absolute storyline point, but it was very, very heavily implied that she and Bayley, at least in a kayfabe sense, were the driving force behind those titles being created.
Yeah, which was amusing to say the least. A lot of that really was nothing to do with them, from my understanding. It was more fan demand and input, and Vince, never wanted to have the titles from what we've heard, down the rumor mill, and really that he just decided to give it to the fans. I mean, he announced them, and then they weren't even debuted for weeks on end. So that alone shows that they had no real plan for them, and we've heard that reported many times over, that they had no idea what to do with them until later on. And initially it was supposed to be, from my understanding, Trish and Lita were supposed to be the initial tag champs, or the ones to win it at Mania. So
I would have been... Yeah, see, I would have loved that only because... way back before we got and as we mentioned in the first half, the women's how they're treating women's wrestling as a whole. I mean, there's gaps, don't get me wrong. As a whole, this is the best they've treated the women's division ever. The women have 5 titles. Okay, not including the Mae Young Classic. and the Royal Rumble and all those types of things. That, I mean, let's be real. Some of those things they should have had a long time ago, but not including those type of titles. There are right now 5 women's titles in the WWE if you count NXT, UK, Raw, SmackDown, and the tag titles. And the
Yeah,
tag
absolutely.
titles, at least in principle, were going to be the. I mean, the wild card rule came and fucked that up. But before the wild card rule came into effect, the tag titles really did have a unique element to them where they were going to float between brands. We even saw Sasha
Even
Banks
down
and
to
Bayley.
NXT.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that idea wasn't realized
No, it didn't come to fruition
to its fullest
unfortunately.
extent.
Yeah, because of the wild card rule, as you mentioned. But even still, I mean, this is the best the women have had it, obviously, ever in the WWE, I feel, and I agree with you there. They're actually viewed as talent, not objects, not personal possessions, and not just eye candy.
And this is where I really have to get over my bias, because back in the day, back in the eras previous to this one, I always said, when I was a younger fan, when we didn't get much, you know, we had, like, there was women's wrestling, you had the every single problematic match that King and JR ever commentated, from we mentioned it before, the Miller Lite Catfight girls to the, you know, all the bra and panties matches and all that sort of thing. You didn't have very many stars. So when when you talk about Trish Stratus and Lita, there's your Rock Austin of the women's division of that era. But even then, I would side with the fan, and I don't always agree here, but I would side with the fans there, where you're definitely putting a title on a part timer, and that brings a whole different set of issues. But can you imagine if you're Sasha and Bayley, who are the big fans that they claim to be,
Yeah.
2-on-2 with, I'm sorry, like, they are two icons of the female division
some of
in
the biggest
WWE.
women to ever take the stage in wrestling.
Like,
Absolutely, that would have been great for them to get the titles from those two, and I'm really not sure why that never happened. They felt like they had enough star power, didn't want to overshadow, and blah blah blah. But the point comes down to, you know, even still, one of the main problems with the women's division is the same problem they have with wrestling in general with creative. They only focus on a set surrounding of people, and everyone else falls to the wayside. So there's not enough women to be really in contention for the tag titles, because they don't focus on enough teams to make anybody relevant. There's not enough people to be contenders for the women's belt, because they don't, again, make anyone relevant. So the problem being is that, you know, you only have 3 or 4 women that are usually in the week-to-week storyline, and they kind of change one person out every 7-8 weeks, depending on how many pay-per-views you get in between there. You know, it was Becky and Lacey for a few weeks out and out, while it was Charlotte and Bayley. Now it's Charlotte and Bayley still, and it's going to be Becky and Sasha. So Bayley just dropped off, or excuse me, you know, Lacey just dropped off to replace for Sasha. You know, they kind of, and the rest of the women's division is wholeheartedly forgotten about.
I mean, nobody's really mourning less Lacey Evans on our screen. Like, let's be honest about that one.
I am. I really enjoy Lacey. I think she's a fantastic, you know, total package. She's entertaining on the mic. She's got some, you know, good gimmicks about her, and she's entertaining in the ring to me. And that's the thing, though. We, you know, they kind of rapidly pushed her and then gave her a quick decline.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with a lot of these women. But Sasha's main point, and she even said it back this past Monday on Raw, you know, today being the 4th, so on the you know, the 2nd, she went ahead and said that, oh, well, I should have been in the main event, and you weren't relevant until your face got broken, you know, trying to make that comment, which couldn't be further from the truth, really, because Becky was already, you know, main eventing shows, and she was already using the moniker of the Man at that point in time. Yeah. She was getting ready to face Ronda Rousey, who was the top at that moment. You know, she was the top of the mountain that needed to be conquered.
I was going to say, like, her getting her face broken delayed her push. Like,
yeah,
delayed her.
It didn't
set it off.
No, fans were already siding with her, and that's why she progressed further with this Man gimmick, because it was the unwillingness of the fans to boo her when she tried to turn heel. Yeah. The fans wanted to cheer her and support her, so eventually, you know,
I'm
couldn't
sorry,
argue against it, and they had to go with it. Sasha didn't have that kind of drive or interest that people cared about it. And her heel turn now currently is a flop, unfortunately. I don't hold it wholeheartedly against her, I
Right.
have my own personal opinion with her and issues, but even now, as time's passed and her, time has, kind of worn me down since she returned, I'm leaving the personal side behind and just trying to look at her as, the character. And it's a far cry from what we used to get from her back in
Yeah.
NXT. And I don't know what it is specifically if she's just too controlled right now. Is she too scripted? Is she not enjoying what she's doing?
You know what it
But
is, man? Honestly, what it feels like to me is, and this is a really, 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 this is a hot take, so feel free to come in and wholeheartedly disagree if you want to. To me, right now, she comes off in her promos and everything she's doing in the ring. Well, everybody's just happy I'm back. I'll try when I feel like it. Like that, like
no, I agree
her
because
promos have no, and I'm
she's
sorry.
overacting instead of giving a damn. It feels like.
Yeah, she's almost she's doing what they've given her, and she's doing it sarcastically, which she thinks is a fuck you to the company, when really it's just a fuck you to people that are trying to enjoy the show.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, she's tweeting out, thanking the boss, Vince McMahon himself, for all of the wonderful perks she has now that she's returned. And we've heard this reported when she returned, that
Yeah.
she now has her own glam team that follows her. She has, an increase in her salary. She has a private plane that she gets to take. She has her own tour bus. She doesn't have to answer to anyone except to Vince directly now. What more could you ask for? And that's the thing that pisses me off the most. When we have people like Rusev and Luke Harper, and the
Yeah.
list goes on.
The,
People
pe-
that
the
work
people
so
that are
hard.
literally sitting in catering or sitting at home or whatever and can't do shit.
Exactly.
I
And the
wanted to
ones
share.
that said, if you're not going to use me, then let me go, and then they get completely cast aside and not utilized whatsoever
Yeah.
because they don't want to lose them to another promotion. So if that's the case, just let them go and don't keep them tied up. I know you don't want to lose them, but this is not a way to treat people. So
Yeah, I think we said this before too. I do get that to a point, but like, if you didn't want to be held to that, then like there is a sense of you should have read the contract better, or you should have signed a shorter contract, or whatever. That's
but there's
not.
also when you're signing a contract too,
You think you're going to be
on,
used.
yeah, you're going to be wrestling, not wasting away,
Yeah.
in the gym the entire time. So there is that as well.
Yeah.
And I know
But
the
but
card's
as we say, like
subject to change, but
my go-to example at the beginning of this conversation, and I know people laugh at this because I've had these conversations in the week between the first part and now, and I've used the Dana Brooke example. Dana Brooke hasn't been used on TV. What's she been doing? She's been out trying to learn other aspects, and I know it's one story that I keep going back to, but like if you got somebody who's not getting any TV time right now, who's taking that time that she's not on TV, going back to the PC, and other wrestlers are saying, yeah, like she hit me up for information, she hit me up for information, she's talking to the ring crew guys, she's talking to the commentators, she's talking to the commentators about how can I relate to you guys better so you can tell my story better. That's somebody that I feel more bad for.
yeah, somebody that actually cares. Liv Morgan is another one that comes to mind, who's pleading on Twitter, where am I? Why am I not being? She gave her story. She had a chance.
Although
Ruby Riot's
although
injured,
I
but
will say she's been dropping like little video hints on social media, so there may be, because remember when they originally split the Riot Squad, she was the one that got actually moved to a different show.
yeah,
So
she went to SmackDown
yeah,
while the rest remained, and
call it a fool's errand, but I think if there's a group that's split, but then of that split group you completely remove one from the scenario, I gotta think that they've got something in mind. Maybe it won't be good, maybe it'll be cheesy, maybe she'll be a comedy act or a mid-card act, but you know what? I'm sorry, WWE's biggest enemy right now, Cody Rhodes, when he was in WWE, when he got handed some of the shittest gimmicks and made them all work.
yeah, he got
So
more.
so like he made the clear mask thing work. He made the dashing thing work with the mustache. And he made even though he says he hated it, like he made
Yeah,
something.
Stardust worked and became popular.
But if he could take something that he legitimately actually hated and make it work as well as it did, it wasn't a world title gimmick or anything like that. So this is why I react so negatively when it's like, oh, well, they didn't give me anything or they gave me something bad. And I'm like, well, there's people that take something bad and bitch about it. And there's people that take something bad and make it great. Look at Mizdow.
Well, yeah, but that's another thing as well. You're naming people, and that's the thing. WWE typically misuses and is always late to respond to the. They're not on the pulse. They're not up with the audience. I just off the top of my head right now, you look at the B team. They were
Yep.
they were extremely underutilized. Look at Breezango. The Fashion Files was some of the it was compared to what would now be the Firefly Funhouse in terms of segments. It was that damn entertaining, and week to week you looked forward to that on SmackDown typically coming on. Like, oh, SmackDown was not great tonight, but the Fashion Files was very funny and entertaining because
Yep.
they were just that damn good.
Yep.
Look at even Slater and Rhino. I got kids. Something as silly as that gimmick
Yep.
turned into gold. I can keep going here, but you shouldn't have to be essentially. It's viewed as a demotion, but taken off the main roster and sent back to NXT to get a little bit of your edge back. But Breezango tonight in NXT,
I was gonna say
they're so
they've turned it
overcrowded.
up.
Yeah, I mean, and the same thing, and it's not like they're doing anything different than they were on the main roster. They're just
I love their new entrance music. I'm not gonna lie.
with the
It
police
I
and everything. It's a fantastic gimmick.
I said
It's
on my
funny.
review it sounds like the opening monologue to the People's Court.
It does. It has that kind of
But see, here's the thing
sound
though.
to it.
You know,
The last one too. Look at Rusev. Rusev
Oh my
Day
God.
and Lana. Number
he's
one.
he's just missing.
Well, but
he's
that's the
just
thing.
missing.
But even when they had him for all that time, they still didn't capitalize on it. There's all these times where these people get over, and it's because they get themselves over that Vince isn't happy. If it's not an idea of his own, or if it's not something that is directly catering to him, he shuns it. And you can even go back and say Zack Ryder with his YouTube channel, and
Yep.
time and time again.
And now
there's
everybody's
so
got a
many
YouTube
examples.
channel.
Yeah, even Asuka does actually. She started.
And you know
doing
what though?
video
Look
games.
at that. Look at somebody like Asuka who's got so little. And I'm gonna bring it back around to our actual topic because I know we.
It's all relevant.
Yeah. Well, tangent is tangent, but like Sasha, other than when she decided she didn't like a loss and fucked off, didn't need to do that. Like, didn't need to, go and make a YouTube channel. Like, Zack Ryder made a YouTube channel probably for fun, but also to get his name out there. Asuka's
Yeah.
going to do the gaming thing because probably she sees, the success that somebody like an Xavier Woods has with it. And all the power to them for doing
And
this
they
other
haven't
stuff.
been on TV in ages, and they haven't been included in things, and I'm missing from storylines. But you last time, previously, part one, listed off all those damn accolades and everything that was either. You could say she earned it in NXT. That's fine because she did
Yep.
earn her spot. But everything that she was given, and like I said, that's not quite fair to say she was given everything. She did earn those spots,
Yeah.
but everything that was that she received, hell, most of the other people in the roster or the division or would kill to have a 28-8 title reign or
Exactly.
kill to be
Exactly.
the Iron Person in a Rumble or kill to not be left off 15 pay-per-views in a row.
Or kill to make literal, like, actual real-life history in a country that, up until that point, had never allowed female performers.
Exactly.
Like, I'm sorry, like, on a different, like, I know we're talking mostly kayfabe, mostly just what we think of these stars and whatever, but that's, like, the reason I stuck that one and I saved it to the end of the list, that's a very real thing. Like, that's not just, oh, we think she's great, we gave her a title. We are breaking ground, we are making history for
That's
women.
culture changing and
Yeah.
life changing. And
Like,
life
that's
altering.
impactful. Like, I tell people that shit, and I'm the one, I'm sure you know the feeling too when you're in that group of friends and you're the wrestling guy.
Yeah.
Like, I say that in casual conversation, and people that don't give a shit about wrestling care about that because it's a different level of importance, obviously, right? Other countries, women are still putting up with terrible, horrible things that we don't want to talk about on this podcast, quite frankly. But like, she was not only given all the fictional accolades, but to go out there into the world and do actual real shit. She was given the platform to do that as well. She didn't have to go make a YouTube channel to do that.
No, she didn't have to look elsewhere. She was just able to do as she wanted.
She didn't have to build her own machine because the machine was definitely behind her.
Exactly.
even-
She was given TV time and time again. She was given a chance to
And the and
you
the
know,
ar- and the
shine.
argument that her title reigns were only they were only a month long at a time. I'm sorry, whether she had a belt or not, you never, ever, Jericho, ever doubted that she was a main eventer in their eyes.
Absolutely. And then on top of it all, you know, she's upset when she's the tag team champion
Yep.
at WrestleMania defending the title.
She was the champion debuting that accolade at WrestleMania for the first time.
You know, you don't think that name wrestler here would have loved to have been
Yep.
in a title match or in a match at all, or even, you know, Dana Brooke wouldn't have loved to have even been going in that Fatal 4-Way tag team match, you know. That's the part that I get very disgruntled over.
I want to share a little bit of an anecdote with you, which is why I'm kind of glad that this spilled over into this week, because I was having a conversation. You know, I'm not the most popular person on Twitter. Most people know this by now. But somebody was making the argument to me that she should have been in the main event, and I made the argument of, okay, tag team championships are mid-card titles. She's like, well, why couldn't she hold two titles? And I'm like, why? The women are all spread out really, really thin or whatever. Oh, but you don't care about Seth Rollins carrying two titles. Who likes the Seth Rollins shit that's going on right now?
Yeah, that's not okay either.
Like,
and
nobody.
I've spoken out against that.
Like, nobody is saying that that's great. Like, and that's not a guy-girl thing. That's not a race thing. That's not an anything thing. It's just a shitty story. Like, if you're trying to come to me and defend Sasha Banks, are you saying you want Sasha Banks to be in that type of mess? Because that would mean that she was fighting Bayley at the end of the night, which is definitely not happening. I want to go on to something else here really quickly, because what I have left here is sort of bullet pointy, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock for you. Sasha Banks. You can
Yes.
say whatever you want about her, and this is, you can debate whether it's deserved or not. Basically, my opinion, and once again, some of the stuff that I say is a little bit to the left or to the right, so I want you to pipe up if you disagree with me, or if you don't want to come with me on a particular ride. She's basically treated differently. Well, no, because I don't want to drag you into my muck if that's not where you want to be.
Oh, hey, I'm along for the ride. Go ahead.
But basically, I've broken it down into three categories. If she's going to be treated differently, and you know, you have to have a lot in your favor if you're going to hold Vince over a barrel. She's got the cousin card, she's got the AEW card, and she's got the race card. But I don't mean the race card the way people think I mean the race card. The cousin thing is really easy. Her cousin is Snoop Dogg. Her cousin is in their Hall of Fame. Her cousin has been part of their shows. He's given them music for their pay-per-views. He's a
Yes.
big... And none...
But I think that thing with Snoop Dogg never benefited her with the fans. I think it benefited her backstage, maybe to receive.
That's what I mean. Like, because we
yeah.
don't decide how she's treated. The company does.
Well, the reaction of the fans has been considered more lately, not to the extent of which we'd like.
Yeah.
But
But
I see your point.
But
you
you've
know,
got
that's
this big pop
definitely
culture figure.
influenced-
You've got this big
Yes.
pop culture figure that's in their Hall of Fame that, and I mean, WWE makes a lot of their name on the charity work that they do, and all the power to them. They do a lot of charity.
But Snoop Dogg walked her to the ring,
Yep.
singing her, theme song. That's a fantastic point to be had. You know, was she only included in that WrestleMania match because Snoop Dogg would be?
Hold on.
All good.
And we're back. Sorry, we had a little bit of a freeze there.
But was she included in the WrestleMania event just so that they could have Snoop Dogg?
Oh, absolutely
at
not.
WrestleMania?
Absolutely not.
Maybe. You never
Maybe.
know. Maybe she wouldn't have been there. That could have been somebody else's spot, or it wouldn't have been a triple threat, or it wouldn't have been just to go ahead and, they wanted Snoop Dogg to be there, to be advertised, to, oh, I'll tune in because I want to see Snoop Dogg, Maybe not to us, but there might be some casual fan that, who knows?
Right.
But no, I agree with your point, and I'm curious to hear what your race card comment is intriguing. So.
Okay. Well, I'll do that, and then I'll do the AEW thing, because the AEW thing's kind of self-explanatory. The race card thing,
Yes.
I will never say that Sasha Banks walked into Vince McMahon's office and said, "You have to give me this, this, and this, or I'm going to go on Twitter and tell the whole world that you're racist, Mr. McMahon." I will never, ever make a claim
that's not
like
something
that.
anybody's insinuating.
No, I'm not, and I even in my days where I can't stand Naomi either, and I don't think she belongs where she belongs. But that's not anything I can say. But there you and I have talked before we came online today about like just the social things that are out there.
Yeah, the
and
climate's changed, and she could have easily caused a shit-stirring storm if she desired to. Yeah.
All it takes is for one or two fans to see her lose a match Okay. Who did she lose the match to? Okay, she lost the match to Alexa Bliss. Well, Alexa Bliss is white and blonde and she looks like a Barbie doll, even though she
Yes, and we
doesn't.
hear that enough now.
But just and I go back to I have nothing against Titus O'Neil, but this is the only example I can think of off the top of my head. Titus O'Neil on live television put his hands on his boss and still has a job because Twitter lost its shit.
I mean, he shouldn't have gotten suspended anyways. That was the whole thing. But yeah, I get your point. Had it been anybody else, maybe they would have gotten fired. And as stupid as that whole situation was, had it not been Titus, maybe they would have been fired. And
if it was Heath Slater, we wouldn't see Heath Slater. He'd be doing like specifically house shows, and that's it. So like,
or he could have been fired. Yeah. So there is that possibility of it was just
and
it was a 90-day suspension brought down to 60, which never should have been suspended for anyways. But that's neither here nor there. But that was in response to the fan backlash. Yeah, I get your point there.
Because they want to and I'm sorry, it goes off, and this is not a diatribe I want to get onto tonight, but it's the uproar around Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania. Like, I like Kofi, but
I do as well, but I would have liked to see Daniel Bryan
They laid it on a little thick. And
then again, WWE has been viewed as racist as well for with their titles for a long time. I mean, everything they did. Yep. Triple H and Booker T was pretty damn egregious and awful. That was a bad build up to Mania for that one, and the conclusion was even worse. And that left a bad taste even longer in people's mouths. So now you have your African American champ, and it was a fantastic, emotional roller coaster ride of a WrestleMania moment. That was a true moment.
They put a great moment together. I don't think he works as WWE champion. Personally, that's just
I don't
me.
either. And Joe has said this. I've said this.
But
Connor kind of agrees at times, but
like I feel really bad for whoever he loses the belt to, because they're going to be sort of labeled by default.
Maybe it depends on how they.
There's that fringe of the fan base. Like,
there's going to be, no matter what, that's to be expected always. But that fringe is becoming larger, so that's the issue.
I don't think it's getting larger. I think it's just getting louder.
Okay, maybe
there's existing.
Right about that. That's true.
So as I say, that's where I wanted to say the race card. It was not that I was saying that Sasha herself is playing the race card. I want to be clear on that. But there is a race card out there that subliminally may or may not be in her favor. That may not be if she was a different tone, and that's as politely as I. And the AEW thing is just, well, if you don't give me what I want, and if you don't renew my contract, I'm just going to go over and hang out with Cody. And what I really like in this case, I know they want to hold on to talent. I really want Vince or Triple H or whoever it is to nut up and call somebody on their bluff at some point. And this is nothing against Sasha. This is not anything against, the Revival. This is not Moxley, Dillinger, anything. It's not against anybody. But if you call somebody on their bluff, then every single person in the back that thinks they deserve a little more and a little more and a little more might actually check themselves a little bit. Because if you're actually willing to leave, then leave. If we say, okay, go, and you sort of slink back to the locker room, then you were talking shit, and you deserve to be called out for talking shit. Like, I'm sorry. I know it's a creative venue, and people that are creative should be able to be creative wherever they want to, but it's not so far that way that you should be able to hold your boss ransom. And this is not this is absolutely not specifically a Sasha thing.
No, it's really not. So.
But it's just another name. Well, they better give her what she wants, or she'll go to AEW. Okay. I'm sorry, the one place AEW's fallen down to me, and I said it in my NXT review tonight, because we're getting Ripley versus Baszler soon. We're getting Yim versus Belair versus Shirai soon. We had Tainara Conte versus Bianca Belair tonight, which was great. The one place AEW really needs to kick their asses into gear is their women's division.
Yeah, and that's lacking.
And that's just my opinion. Again,
not so much with the talent, but we're going to have to see what they do with the story side of things.
Right. So those are sort of some cards, and that I think she may or may not be playing off of, whether she even realizes it or not. I'm willing to go as far as to say she might not even realize it. The last thing I want to say, and there's two quick things I want to say, two really, really bad impacts that she's going to have on the backstage locker room area is people are going to take her actions and what has happened to her one of two ways. Is people are either going to follow her example and sort of like walk away until they get what they want and come back, and the ones that aren't seen on the level as her are just going to be like left at home, and it's going to bite them in the ass. And the ones that are a little higher up, like if Charlotte tried to pull something like this, I know that's laughable because she could probably get whatever she wants to. But if people just start walking off because they learn that that's the new way to get your way, you're going to see constant holes in the roster. Now that might
And
benefit.
changes to planned,
Yeah.
storylines and
Yep.
matches, and that was my biggest issue with her being rewarded when she returned. I mean, we don't know everything and how it worked behind the scenes, but
She
that
is
was
being
what I found
rewarded
to
for
be
fucking
most,
off.
Yeah, that's what I found most troublesome with everyone. Oh, I can't wait for her to return. Well, why do you want her to come back if she told you, well, guess what? Because not only did she walk out of the company, but she walked out on the fans.
Yep. And it was literally you talking about this on Joe's show that led to the invitation for you to come here. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest issue.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again for having me, but it's just that was the thing that rubbed me the wrong way the most, is that she walked out on the fans. She absolutely outspokenly said, I don't even want to do it week to week for you guys because you're not enough for me at this point. And yeah, people do get burnt out, people need a break, but she didn't have to just walk out. They're giving people time off. They're giving there's ways to handle things.
Look at Balor. Balor did an amazing job putting over the Fiend. I was there to see it live. I was lucky enough to see it live.
Yeah.
And that was and they gave him a great send off to come back and whatever. The other side of this, for people on the roster that aren't so selfish and aren't so like self-focused, is they're going to look at it and say, you know what, we're not even as appreciated as somebody that wasn't here.
Exactly.
And that's going to drive down the morale. And if there's no morale, and if people don't care about what they're doing, and I've said it a bunch, and I think you and Joe have said it in various ways, you can tell when a wrestler's having fun and when they're not.
Yeah, no doubt.
If you think that's not going to affect the show, then you're deluding yourself.
You're not wrong.
All right. I've got exactly 1 minute to make my very last point, and it happened this week. What have we been waiting for separate from Sasha? What have we been waiting for in the women's division for a while now? Who needed a change more than anybody else?
Oh, Bayley, hands down.
How great was that?
I loved it, and I love that they built to it slowly and steadily with her, story backstage. And first she didn't acknowledge what Sasha had said. Sasha's original point looked like a put down, but really it was a call to arms and action. In the way that they had her say, we'll see who's the last person standing at the end of the night. And, I thought it was perfectly executed. And what she said on SmackDown made sense as well for the most part. I mean, I'm curious to see, but I really like the idea of her being this justified heel. Rather than be a snarky, condescending bitch like most female heels feel they have to be, I love the idea of Bayley being this pseudo heel where she's pretending to be a face while being the bad guy. She's going to do bad, underhanded, nasty things like beat people down with chairs, but she's going to do it because she's justified. She feels that she's in the right. I love that idea. It's different, it's refreshing, and I feel like they could really go far with it.
Now, here's the question for you, and then we're going to wrap up. We've been waiting for this basically since WrestleMania. Since WrestleMania, she stayed when Sasha left. She got the reward she deserved for basically not
Money
being
in
a
the
brat.
bank, the women's title, yeah.
And she's built this, you know what, I'm not going to be the nice hugger all the time anymore. I'm going to be, this is the new Bayley. I'm not going to be pushed around anymore. And she's been edging towards this for a while now. And it's been really good, and it's been really subtle, which we don't get a lot of in wrestling. How much does it turn your stomach that there's a very loud audience out there that's going to give all the credit for Bayley's heel turn to Sasha?
Yeah, that bothers me as well, because I think this was going to happen if Sasha returned or not. They were in a bad way with the pay-per-view coming up because that's Charlotte's hometown. Charlotte gets cheered, a Flair gets cheered, good or bad, when they return home. Pay-per-view, Clash Champions in Charlotte's hometown. Charlotte was going to get cheered. They were desperately needing a heel to face Charlotte. This solved that problem for them. So it really, anytime, you return to the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, that's what's going to happen. she's going to get cheered regardless. If she goes out there and eats a baby alive, it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
So they solved that issue, by going ahead and turning Bayley heel. I don't give Sasha the credit, but like you said, that's what's going to be the focal point for a lot of fans.
And I'm a huge defender of Corey Graves, but it made everything Corey Graves has said absolutely true. This big heel turn moment for Bayley that should have been like the pinnacle, life altering. I don't know what word to use. The pinnacle change moment in Bayley's career, and who's there soaking up the spotlight with her? Because
every step of the way.
Because she decided to wander back into the building, and I think that's the perfect cap on everything that we've said between last week and this week. So very quickly, because I had to trim the other video, why don't you tell people where to find you?
Again, I co-host on the Joe Cronin Show. We're live after every WWE television show and pay-per-view. Soon to be doing NXT and AEW reviews on Wednesdays as well. You can see us Wednesdays for Out of Nowhere on his channel. You can also find me at twitter.com/countdownended and youtube.com/countdownended there as well. Thank you so much for having me. This was a great time. I look forward to discussing a lot more with you in the future as well. So
no worries. I'm actually going to try and stick my outro in here this time. I've been, you guys know where to find me, or else you wouldn't be here. That's just the way it works. I've been Spaz. He's been Jake. We are your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.